2021 iPad Pros with the M1 processor, or you're just wasting your time on the internet, well, you've come to the right place. Because I'm about to tell you everything that you need to know and everything you need to consider before buying the brand new iPad Pros. So without any further ado, let's start with the most basic part of this device, the design. In typical Apple fashion, the design is almost nearly identical to the previous year's models. The entire back is made from 100% recycled aluminium with a little iPhone 12 like camera bump, which consists of a 12 megapixel main sensor, a 10 megapixel ultra-wide sensor and a LiDAR sensor for improved augmented reality. Even though the device is well built and feels chonky, I would recommend you to slap a case on there just for extra safety measures considering the iPad's shameful track record. Yeah, be careful guys. The front of the iPad also remains unchanged with even and uniform bezels all around. Speaking of the front, let's talk about the displays. Perhaps my favorite part about this device, well, the 12.9-inch model to be precise. This device has a mini LED display which consists of 10,000 LEDs compared to 720 LEDs on the previous model. Also called the Liquid Retina XDR display. Who even names these? It has about 2500 local dimming zones which get really close to replicating the deep blacks of OLED displays. Watching 4K HDR content on this feels amazing, and that is truly an understatement. It is an amazing display for watching movies or TV shows, and playing video games feel like a whole different experience due to the 120Hz refresh rate of the display. This display is without question one of my favorite displays on any device ever. So if you consume a lot of content, then this 12.9-inch iPad Pro might be the best one for you. It isn't perfect though. This is still an LED display, it has a backlight, and so anything displayed in front of a totally black backdrop creates this sort of halo effect, which might not be a big deal breaker for many, but it might be very annoying for a few people. That being said, this display is absolutely fantastic and for a few might even be the main reason to get this iPad. Apple isn't joking around here. This device packs the insanely powerful M1 chip that is also found on the higher-end MacBook Airs and Pros. That alone should describe how far ahead of this iPad is in terms of raw performance. According to Geekbench scores, this iPad Pro outperforms the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is the most powerful Intel Mac ever made, which definitely sounds like a massive deal. The power-hungry processor and the huge display don't make it easy for the battery though, giving only about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which is very disappointing, especially after Apple's promise of giving about 11 hours of screen on time. The high-end processor though does not make much sense on the iPad, and I'll elaborate on this in a while. The bottom line is that this device is fast, like crazy fast. But the thing is, so were the previous iPads, and so even though there has been a huge difference in Geekbench scores, while you're using it in day-to-day life, you barely notice the difference, and that really says something. So what's the point of having a high-end processor anyways? In the end, I cannot convince you about whether or not you should buy this device, because it comes down to your personal preference. If you're a student willing to take down notes or create presentations, or a video editor who already has a workflow on the iPad using LumaFusion, then this might be the device for you. But for an average consumer, this is a no-go, because after adding up the cost of the pencil and the keyboard that might be necessary for making the most out of this iPad would be about a whopping $1,098, and that's just with the basic model. The iPad Air that can perform the same task would cost you around $898, which is significantly lesser than the iPad Pro. Even the base model of the MacBook Air with the same M1 processor would cost you around $999, which is still lesser than the base model of the iPad Pro. If the iPad Pro were a person, it would be having a major existential crisis right now because even Apple does not know in which direction they want to take this iPad in. Despite having the processing power of one of the most powerful processors ever, the iPad can never fully reach its potential, and that's because of lack of support for professional software such as Final Cut Pro X and Adobe Premiere Pro. This will likely not change either because if they do introduce desktop softwares on the iPad, Apple would basically be making their Macs obsolete. So there's that. Consider this if you're a movie buff and you love to consume content on the go, because this iPad is absolutely great at displaying HDR content. Or if you have a heavy workflow on an existing iPad already using LumaFusion or something like Procreate, then this might be the one for you. But for average consumers, this shouldn't even be an option, because if you're willing to spend that much money on something, you might as well spend it on something that might be more helpful to you. So there you have it. I hope I've made it easier for you to come to a conclusion, and I also hope that you enjoyed this video. So if you did, please do go and hit that like button, and do not forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. And thank you so much for watching. I'll meet you next time. Goodbye.